so I oversee all of the content across our 30-plus events that we do here and in Europe. I wanted to just cover a couple of things because you can be of great use to us. I have to say, we've been doing these summits for over 10 years. The email summit is still our model in terms of the kinds of conviviality, the sense of community that you guys have in this area of the digital industry, the ways in which we see the conversations go on and things like the roundtables at the end of the morning, the sense of interaction, the questions from the audience that come during the summit, really is a model that we wish we could see at every summit we do, but it has a lot to do with the kind of profession that this is, the longevity of a lot of you in this field, and the conviviality and the relationships that you've all formed. We love it, and we want to bring it to other shows. So I want to tell you just about a couple that I think are very relevant to you that you might be interested in, or some of your colleagues might be interested in. Before I do, a reminder, for those of you who don't already know, we live stream all of this on-stage content over MediaPost.com. So it's going out, it's being reported on by our reporters, so wave hi to the family. Tell them you survived the tropical storm, and also we archive them. So they're going to be available online for you or your colleagues to grab, embed, refer to other people. Usually by the end of the afternoon, early morning the next day, the videos are available online. If you go back to the agenda for the summit, at MediaPost.com, you'll see the videos attached to each one of the sessions. So do that. We're going to be in LA, by the way, on July 19th for a one-day show, and we're going to be in New York for a special show on the Internet of Things. If you're interested in that, go to the site and take a look at those. Ping me if you're interested in being involved. But there are two in particular, the next round of summits that we'll be doing in Tahoe at the end of August. One on programmatic marketing, that's going to be August 21st through the 24th. For a lot of you who are interested in the ways in which email, and especially the data that it renders, ties into programmatic ad buying and planning, that's an interesting summit. And those of you, many of you may not feel comfortable talking about this stuff, but you may be interested in the relationships between your field and theirs. If you're interested in coming to that summit, talk to especially marketers who are part of our VIP program. Talk to John Ranga, who you know already, about perhaps participating in that. Some of you may have friends within your organization that are interested in that. That's one of our longer running summits, more recent family of summits that's proven extremely popular. But the one that I really think would be of special interest here, especially since we've talked a lot about cross-channel marketing, is our brand marketing summit, which is going to be the 24th through the 27th. And the focus there is on executing cross-channel plans. And we're going to be the agenda will be posted very shortly, but as of now, we're talking about things like the ways in which you can break down silos organizationally, the ways you can move from a cross-channel plan to actual execution. We'll be talking about mapping data against particular plans. So all of those things we're going to be engaging there, and I'm especially interested in getting people involved who can talk about how email relates to a lot of these things, since we've already talked here on stage a number of times about the ways in which email really is still central to identifying users across channel, and the data that's rendered by email really is relevant to all areas of the marketing organization. So if you're interested in that event, being involved as a speaker or coming as a VIP, talk to John Ranga or talk to me, because we'd love to have you, and we'd love to endow some of our other summits with the incredible spirit that this summit has. So thanks everybody for coming. If you're interested in coming to the other shows, let me know. And I'm going to hand it back over to Gord.
Thanks, Steve. So how was day one of the summit, everyone? As Steve said, you guys survived the storm, but what's more importantly, is, especially for new attendees to the summit, you survived what we call the Summit Slam. That's when day one you don't realize there's a 3-day summit, and the after party may go a bit longer than you attended, and then you've got to wake up early the next morning. So congratulations on surviving the Summit Slam. Yesterday we talked a lot about data and the various aspects of data. Today we're going to get more into the nuts and bolts of working email campaigns with our panels. And I'm pretty excited about this next keynote that we've got, because if any of you have kind of ever read any of my columns, you know that understanding what drives consumer behavior, especially when it comes to the more irrational side of that, has always been a really interesting area for me. And I'd like to call up Jessica Vogel. Jessica is the Senior Global Marketing Manager from Dell, and she's going to be talking to you about creating emotional bonds one at a time. So, Jessica?
Last night, through happy hour and dinner, you guys are so loud. How are you guys doing today? Sun's out, here to learn. I love it, living the dream. So thanks for the warm welcome. My name's Jessica. I have been at Dell for about 13 years, done all sorts of things. Today, I am going to talk a little bit about driving the emotional connection. Like Gord said, yesterday we really talked about a lot of things that we're very focused on in the email world. Personalization, the next new technology, segmentation, really getting the right message to the right person at the right time, right? And it sounds kind of familiar. I'm seeing a lot of nods. Are we saying it in the right way? And so what I want to talk about is making sure that we are saying it in the right way and really resonating our message with our customers. So last year, I was at Epsilon Symposium, and Andy Frawley, the CEO, his keynote, he opened talking about emotional connection. And before that, I probably wouldn't have ever thought about this, honestly, very much until I saw that. One of his quotes that really rang true with me was, the pace at which customers increase their share of wallet intent is dramatically increased when there's emotional connection. So yesterday, we saw a couple examples of that. The Fanatics video and the Google video. There's a lot of great brand elevating videos out there, or content out there, that really gets you to connect with that brand. And I started thinking, Dell, if you've ever been on our YouTube channel, you've also seen Dell does that. Many brands do that. But that's on the upper funnel. When it comes down to really the transactional, when they're making that purchase, how are we doing that? And is there an opportunity for some improvement there? Yes. The answer is yes. So before we really get into it, I want to talk a little bit about what I mean by emotional marketing, because so I went to this conference last year. I got super excited about this whole concept. I started running around talking to copywriters and creative people, and there was kind of like emotion, like happy, sad. I'm like, well, there's a few more emotions than that, and I mean bigger than that. So emotional marketing is a practice of building brands that appeal directly to a consumer's emotional state, needs, and aspirations. So like in the videos we saw yesterday, and I could have shown a Dell, one of our many, but for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of stick to the meat and potatoes today. But how are we doing that? And are we doing it in the most effective way, again, to reach that customer audience? Some industries are going to be easier to do this than others. I would assume nonprofits, it's easier to hit maybe the emotional side versus something like technology, but there's a way that we can do it kind of across the board. So before we get to the elephant, which I love, my 13 years at Dell, this is the only time I've ever had an animal in my slide, and I love it. But I want to start with this quote. So I heard Andy Frawley speak, and I'm like, this is fantastic. I read his book, and I wanted to do some research on my own. And this quote, the very point of choice is arguably always based on emotion. So I did some digging, and there was a neuroscientist named Antonio Damasio who did a study on people who had brain damage to the part of their brain that is attributed to emotions. So they are unable to feel emotions. Other than that, they were normal. It just was the inability to feel emotions. But they had one particular thing in common that was unique: their inability to make decisions. The most simple decisions, what to have for dinner. So when they had an option between chicken and steak, they couldn't pick, because they're both protein. On the rational side, there's a reason to pick either of those options, but there was no visceral. There was no desire. There was no other way to help guide them. To mom makes the best steak. I only eat mom's steak, so I'm clearly getting the chicken. So I thought it was really interesting that there's medical studies that also kind of prove that our decision making is really based on that emotional connection. Does anyone recognize elephant? It's borrowed from The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt, another great book. And the premise is we have the elephant and the rider. So the rider is the conscious, verbal, thinking side of the brain. So logically, what we want to do. The elephant is the automatic, emotional, visceral side of the brain. When they work together, it goes great. If they don't work together, if they're on different wavelengths, can anyone guess who's going to win that? right? Okay, so the elephant wins. No matter how rational this rider is, the elephant is going to do what the elephant's going to do because it's going off instinct. So the rider, again, on the conscious side, focusing on rational benefits, in the world of marketing, when we make decisions choosing a brand, we use both. And whether we know we use both, we are actually using both. So the rational benefits appeal to the logical side, so price, specs, structure, all of the things that make, uniqueness of the product. And then the emotional benefits, how do you feel? What is your gut reaction when you hear that brand? Because when it comes down to it, it's more than just price. And I think we can all, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, there are a number of instances where price doesn't matter. I don't know why the first thing that comes to my mind are Air Jordans, right? The most expensive shoe maybe ever, and people, you can clearly get a decent shoe for a lot less, but people that have that feel with that brand, doesn't matter the price, that's what they're purchasing. So in a lot of organizations, I'm sure similar to yours, you really got to have your data. You can't just have I've got this idea and go change the way you've been doing things for a really long time. So I did even more digging. So this first quote, again, it's Andy's, but people are up to 5 times more likely to purchase based on emotional response. So this is over time. But from a Dell perspective, where especially, and what we're talking about today is going to be B2B and B2C. So I work in all of those groups, but a lot of this data, it applies to businesses as well. And something I specifically saw based on that emotional connection it's more than just the tech specs and the speeds and feeds. We have to really, connect with our customers on a different level. So people are 5 times more likely. Then I've got this other Motista survey, and it's twice as important. So, data out there everywhere. I really haven't found a lot of data that says people don't make decisions based on emotion. So depending on where you see, I think where we can see is there's definitely some lift in regards to this. So in marketing, often, again, we've got these brand level campaigns, and we're able to bring in that high level type big hug. But when you get to the transactional, you want to talk about what you're getting, why you're better than your competition. That's the details of why they should pick your brand. So how can we improve our transactional messages to include some of this more emotional messaging? So one of the insights, lack of any emotional messages isn't helping you differentiate your brand or build that relationship and that long-term brand affinity to you. So let's say you're getting an email from Dell. Let's say you happen to be in the market to purchase a system or any sort of technology, and you get the email from us. Price is one part of it, but how you feel about us as a brand is definitely going to impact that, right? It's not going to be just price or just value that you're going to make that decision on. Even if you think that's the case, it's not the case. We've tested it. We've proven it. We'll talk about that. So I would recommend what we did. We went back and looked at our messages, see where maybe we could do things a little bit differently. We started doing some testing. All of it kind of helped us agree that there is some opportunity here and make sure that we're working on the product. We're still product, right? We still have to have that logical, that rational messaging to go with it, adding some emotional, pulling in that personal value, and that's going to build that loyalty and have people continue to purchase over time. So this is kind of an old example, and again, I didn't bring in the videos, but this is something we've been doing sort of, and it just continues to evolve, especially down in the transactional space. So this is an example about some laptops, and a lot of the copy that you can see is go anywhere productivity, designed to meet every task, deploys quickly and securely, and especially when you're talking to CTOs, these are all very important words, and these are very important when you make a decision regarding technology. Did I do that? We on fire here? And so that is important, and we still do a lot of product videos this way today. But then on the right, we had an example of, again, it's in the commercial space, so not just business to consumer, where we had a woman come into the office. Dave, you've heard about this new cost-cutting measure, and Dave goes on to his spiel about, Dell has these products, and it's cost-cutting, and they're flexible, and we can do X, Y, Z. And then at the end, the woman's like, "Smart move, Dave. Call me, we could use you in accounting." So kind of cheeky, but it's playing on the fact that Dave might be responsible for this huge technology marketing budget, a huge technology budget where he has to make these big decisions, but Dave is still a human being. Dave still wants to be seen as an asset to his company, and this is something that everybody can relate to, right? Because we all want to be seen as an asset. We all want to know we've got a future outside of the job we're in today. And so that's what we're kind of playing on here. Kind of a different message, but still saying the same thing. Choose Dell. We're going to help you look better within your company and give you what you need in regards to flexibility and product selection. So we did a test. We've done a number of tests. So this is one test we did, and it's not the highest statistical significance. It's low in the space, but we still needed to get a sense before we start going and doing everything differently, assuming that we now need to pull on the emotional thread with especially our commercial customers. We gave it a whirl. So all we changed was the headline: migrate and modernize your IT now. Very techie. I think that's actually a fantastic headline, versus the clock is ticking, don't sacrifice your time by waiting, start migrating now. You can see the whopping number of people who clicked on the migrate and modernize your IT now. 0. Like literally nobody, not one person engaged with that headline. They might need to migrate and modernize their IT now, but that didn't resonate with anyone, versus 12.5% of the people who engaged with the email had engaged with that headline. And overall, we saw a pretty big improvement in click-to-open rate, so people engaged when they had when they had the feeling of, it was kind of fear. So we'll talk about the different emotions and where we want to play. But again, exact same message, just getting them to engage. And I'm sure you know, or if you've seen, I don't know how much A/B testing you're doing, this is a pretty significant difference that we saw. So again, once we started doing this, it was really piquing the interest of us to kind of keep moving. So now we've got the industry knowledge, the same emotional tie. We've done even like some preliminary Dell tests. So now what? Is anyone in here responsible for the copywriting or the message that goes out? Yeah? Well, so that's a good number of us, but I'm sure a number of us are also responsible for the overarching strategy. A lot of what we've talked about since we've been here, and I know a lot of the partners, very valuable partners that we have, a lot of the things we're talking about come with dollars. Maybe not all of you have endless dollars to spend, so this might be something that you could think about how you could go back, apply your brand, and see what works for you. So I'm going to talk a little about copywriting, but maybe not get too into it. But really it should accomplish 2 goals: make the customers feel something and then get them to want to do something based on that. Before we started going crazy and started copywriting, and I will say that the one before about sacrificing your time maybe didn't align with the Dell brand. We're not trying to put the fear in you to make you buy some technology solutions. But the first thing we did was really align with our brand voice. So for those of you who have a brand team or already have a brand voice, half of this is the groundwork's already laid for you to do this. But for us, it's first of all knowing your audience. So data, insights, what are their pain points, saying things that are relevant to them already, connecting in a meaningful way, kind of how you address it, making sure your creative over all the different channels kind of has a similar message, or at least a similar look and feel, so people know what they're talking about when it comes to your brand. And then for us, it's really to show them how Dell can help. It's not about us, it's about you. It's about how our technology is here to serve you, make your lives easier. So some specific copywriting tips. So these emotions are totally different from the emotions that I showed earlier. There's a ton of emotions. I pulled these from an entrepreneur.com article, and the point was kind of just to show you that, first of all, this is everywhere. And depending on where you get your source, there's all sorts of different emotions out there. And I just thought this was a good list. The bubbles aren't representative of anything except bubble sizes, so don't worry about that. The reason I have fear and guilt in red/pink are because those are 2 that specifically at Dell we are not, after we've had some conversations, those aren't 2 that we're pulling on. Those don't align with our brand and what we're trying to do. But they might be for yours depending on where you are. So fear, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday in one of our breakout sessions. So fear, insurance, having enough insurance, being set up for retirement. You got to take it seriously, right? And some people might pull on that fear, on the fear factor a little bit to make sure that you're really prepared for your future. Guilt is a really good one. The best one I've seen guilt used is for nonprofits. So we've all seen the ASPCA's, 27 cents a day, you know, kind of like, I mean, it's 27 cents a day. I mean, right? So guilt, I think, really works, again, depending on depending on your industry and who you're trying to reach. Some of the other ones, you also have to find what's authentic to your brand and what's also going to stand out. So trust and value, I think, are pretty common. So trust, no hidden fees. Again, you'll see that a lot in the financial industry. Value, price match guarantee. I think some of them are a little overdone, so then it kind of doesn't, again, distinguish your brand from anybody else. But as you continue to evolve and figure out what makes sense for you, those might be things that you're really working on. Belonging, someone signs up for your email program or makes a purchase, welcome to the family. Just trying to get them to feel like it's more than just a transaction that they're doing. And then some of these other things, instant gratification, again, depending on, ships today. If you're trying to get people to make an online purchase versus maybe going into a store, that might be a good one too, because you feel like it's already happening. The wheels are already in motion. Leadership, trend setting, time's a good one too, and we kind of talked about that earlier with the cost cutting with Dave. Time's a big one too, because no matter what industry you're in, we're all human beings. We all have a life outside of work. We all want to work efficiently and effectively and don't want to spend, like if you're in the IT world, night after night dealing with with security issues or whatever it is, and you value your time. You value your time with your family, your kids, your hobbies, and you want to be efficient. So we've done a number of tests, and I don't have other test results in here, but so the first one we kind of went through, we've tested a number of times. Shop now for secure, reliable technology for your business versus give your office that new technology smell. Smell was a little controversial, I don't know, but it worked. People engaged. We all kind of like the smell of a new car, right? So whether you want one or you just got one and you love it, or it's been a long time since you got one, whether you realize it or not, it's hitting you in a different way. Now, I'm certainly not saying every email you get from us is now going to talk about smells, but it was different, it worked, it engaged, and we got people to kind of pay attention. Same thing, accelerate data center transformation, big savings you'll be proud to share with your boss. 2-day sale, major savings ahead versus your family will thank you, great tech and amazing prices. So all of these are relatively different. All of them perform better on the emotional side. I will say I have a lot of experience in A/B testing, and historically a lot of the testing we do, if you're used to being one way and then you do something a different way, the other way is going to work, even if it's not necessarily better. Have you guys seen that to be the truth? So like if you have a from line and then you change the from line, all of a sudden people are going to open more, and then it's going to go down, and then you change back to what you had and it goes up again. So again, not every email that comes out is going to be this way, but again, we understood that there was something to build on here. There was an opportunity for us to improve, and that what the rational side is hitting some people, but not all people. So how can we continue to hit different people with our messages? So that was, when you A/B test, you can only test a little thing. I wouldn't say those were the best A/B tests that have ever seen the face of the earth, right? But it kind of gave us an inclination that, okay, we're onto something, right? We're feeling something here. So what Dell has done is we're bringing emotion into our visual DNA. So it's more than just the copy and products that you will see. So we had to take it to the next level, right? Bring them into the visual DNA. So what we did is we created a manifesto, and this was kind of a big switch for us, right? We're trying to figure out how we're going to evolve the Dell Creative over time. This part here really focuses on consumer and small business. We do have something similar along the commercial side, but focus more on the enterprise side. So this is maybe the manifesto that wouldn't apply to the commercial side. But I'm going to go ahead and read it because I think it's pretty impactful. So like everyone, we have people who inspire us. The only difference is we have a few more than most, millions in fact, all doing amazing things, big and small, with our technology. Inventing, processing, designing, and organizing better worlds, or just better afternoons. And we love that. Whether it's day-changing or life-changing, we're just excited to be a part. It's half the reason we do what we do. The other half, hoping that we may inspire you too. Dell, we love your work. So we did some concept testing. We certainly took this out before we started switching down this way. And the results were really fantastic when we came out this way. So the creative, and again, this is certainly changing over time as well, but the concept really drew strong favorability in regards to us being innovative and and a leader in technology solutions. And I would say that this has helped. We've won a lot of product rewards lately at CES this year. I believe we had 9. Last year we had 50, which is a huge amount. So we've been doing Marcom with those awards already, but again, this is just a different way of trying to reach people, having them see you in the way you want them to see it without you saying, we won awards, we've got the fastest processor, we've got the thinnest or lightest, or the rational side versus focusing on that connection with them. So it drove really great brand perceptions. People are really engaged with it. And then you can see it certainly made people like Delmore, and you can't read it here, but this is, I don't know how well you can see it. He's got a laptop and some airplanes in it. Instead of, you can use your system to watch video, watch movies on the airplane. It's more of an engaging way of, a video guru on the move, kind of trying to engage a different way of saying the same thing, but using different visuals to also bring that through. And then the Space Saver Shapeshifter Memory Maker, you like to play with pictures. But again, it's still, even the word memory, it ties into, when you think memories, you think, when you're kids and remembering things that are important to you. So that's kind of where, in a lot of our Marcom and market, you'll see will look like that. I wanted to show a couple examples of some of the things we're doing in lifecycle marketing. I currently oversee our post-purchase and trigger communications, so this is actually creative that my team did. And the one on the left is our birthday card. And can anyone guess the return on investment of sending a birthday card or email? This is tricky. Happy birthday card. What do you think we get? Nothing, right? Nothing, right? But who sends birthday cards? You can engage. Your mom. Thank you. Yes, your mom. Or your family, or someone who really cares about you sends a birthday card. So, with a free gift. And it's not even a gift to something at Dell. So, we all like birthday cards and we all like presents and free stuff. So maybe not every market is doing this, but it's a way to remind you that you're part of the family and something that we're trying to do with our customers. The one on the right with my beating heart is our canceled or return orders trigger. So you return an order, you cancel an order. I'm sure we all online shop, and it's like, your order has been canceled. Very specific, details of your order 1, 2, 3, 4 has been returned. But this is change of heart, no problem. We did some research too. Data is always helpful before you pull in messaging, but determine why people are returning or canceling their orders. I don't have control over any issues with product or ship times or lead times or any of that. But I can do my best to make you feel better about it, financing, and it's not targeted based on why they returned. One day, here's hoping. We care. It's not just a transaction to us. So we have a lot of little things like this, but again, we're kind of moving to the future. And then my last thing that a couple of the conversations yesterday kind of stole the thunder. What if a company could also use math and science and algorithms to help generate that perfect message? So this was mentioned a couple times yesterday. There are companies out there that can do this, and Dell has partnered with one. We're currently in the pilot phase. And ultimately what you do is you provide them the copy you would like to send. They listen to your customers, they churn and burn and figure out all these iterations, a crazy multivariate test of I think up to 16 options with all these different things to help determine what that perfect message is. So you go back to the list of emotions we have. Okay, well, we don't like fear and guilt. That's just not aligned with our brand. Our new We Love Your Work campaign is very focused on achievement. But what if Dell customers and our subscribers reply best to pride or belonging, and they want to feel like they're part of the family? We do have a Dell Advantage program, and we do merchandise that and talk differently to people in our Dell Advantage program. But what if that is the thing that really gets them the best performance? That would completely change everything that we're doing. So feel free to come talk to me about this afterwards. Really excited about this. We're halfway through the pilot. Great results so far. It is really working. And it's nothing that a room or our agencies of fantastic copywriters could have ever anticipated people would respond to. Just like here in any conversation, you don't know what's going on within somebody or how they're making the decisions that they're doing. but certainly leave it to some data people, and they can help you figure out the best way to optimize it. So feel free again to come chat with me about that. Really excited about that opportunity, and I'm not thinking we have time for questions. If you got one really good question, I can take it. Or I'm happy, I'm around all day today and tomorrow and happy to talk with anybody. Did I change your lives? Are you thinking about the sunshine? Are you just glad the tornadoes passed? Okay, thank you guys so much. Doing the clicker? Thanks.
All right. Well, we'll go right into the next panel now, searching for the next big thing. After the last summit, I reached out to a lot of the attendees and asked what they wanted to see on the next summit. And by the way, we're going to be doing that tomorrow with you in our final session of the day. And one of the attendees from the last summit said, really, I don't know what to try next. I'm looking for something that's going to move the needle, and it's got to move the needle significantly for me to justify putting the budget and the resources in it. I'm not going to migrate everything for incremental change. So that was the premise for this panel, and I think what this panel is going to try to do is act as a bit of a filter for all the things you're hearing to try to consolidate it into some real actionable items. So I'll ask Karen Peterson from Ancestry.com to come up and assemble your panel.
I've actually been there about 11 years. The bulk of that time I actually managed the Canadian business out of the Toronto office. But since returning from Canada, I came in and I started managing the CRM team. And so I've been doing that over the last 5 years, and it's been a period of amazing evolution and change, and I think that Ancestry is kind of at the tipping point of really evolving the way that we talk to our customers. And as you know, Ancestry is really about helping people understand who they are and their families are better through family history research, as well as now DNA technologies. So I'll let each of the panel members introduce themselves, and then we'll get into it.
My name is Kurt Diber. I work for SingGrid. I am not a marketer myself, but I do work with all the marketing teams for some big brands. So some brands you might recognize: Uber, Booking.com, Airbnb, Spotify, Pandora. I focus on these customers. They send between 2.5 million a month to about $1 billion a month. So I have kind of a big perspective of like different marketing, different verticals that I work with. So that's my insight.
Hey everyone, I'm Morgan. I'm from DonorsShoes.org, and just to share a little bit about our company, we were started 16 years ago by Charles Best when he was a high school teacher in the Bronx, and he noticed a lot of his fellow teachers were using their own money to pay for classroom supplies, and he wanted to fix that, so he created a website where teachers can request what they need from their classroom, anything from computers to pencils to books. Donors will fund them, and then DonorsShoes purchases and ships those materials directly to the classroom. So basically, we're crowdfunding for public school classrooms. And this past school year, we delivered $90 million in classroom resources to public schools across the country. I focus on our email team and primarily email our donor base and our teacher base.
Cool. Merry Christmas. My name is Ryan Phelan, VP of Marketing for Adestra. Been in the industry for 15, 17 years. I'm a marketer. I run a marketing group for the U.S. operations for Adestra, but I'm a marketer and somebody that speaks in the industry because I'm out there actually taking the B2B slant. So I'm a B2B marketer right now. I've helped B2C and B2B marketers for my entire career, and having fun.
Awesome. So this topic on searching for the next big thing, I really thought about it more and more, and definitely I want us to cover some of the exciting innovations in the space. But I think the other thing to keep in mind is that we're really trying to each find what's the next big thing that's relevant and for each of our own businesses or areas. So I kind of like to think about it in those two regards. What's big and bad in the industry, and that's what are the things that we should know about, but also what's the next best thing for you. So we've heard all sorts of topics and keywords and buzzwords out there around personalization, omni-channel, behavioral targeting, customer experiences, and I just wanted to think about what are we missing with all of those words around how do we get there. So in the description, we talked about a playbook. We have a playbook. So I was just going to throw it to Ryan and say, is there really such a thing as a playbook for email?
No. Oh, more, okay. No, there's not a playbook. I think there's things that you must do, but I don't call that a playbook. Every company is different. Now there's trends and different things that you can learn in how other people are doing things and adapt those, but I don't know that there's a playbook because it's so specific to what you're doing for your business, your customer, your geography, your country, right? The playbook for Adestra, as a prime example, is vastly different in the US than it is in the UK. Same company, but different approach to marketing. All the companies that I worked with, they all do it different. There's similarities, but everybody's doing it different. So I don't know that there's one universal playbook. If there's anything universal, is that the consumer wants something, and it's our job to figure out how to get them what they want, whether that's content, product, fulfillment of a dream, a wish, donations, nonprofits, whatever. I don't know that there's a playbook. There is just a customer that wants something.
Thank you. And Jessica was just talking about it with Dell about transactional emails. We talked about that a little bit when we were brainstorming about what we might be missing. So Morgan, would you want to talk to us a bit about what you've been doing around transactional emails at Donors Choose?
Yeah, sure. So email for us is a pretty big revenue driver. This past school year, email channel brought in about $15 million of donations. And when we took a look at those splits, we saw that about $3 million were coming from our promotional marketing sends, like back to school and it's holidays and Giving Tuesday. And the other 80% were coming from our transactional triggered messages. And about up until a year and a half ago, we actually didn't realize this. We weren't monitoring our transactional emails. We weren't optimizing them. Part of this, I think maybe a lot of you might be in a similar situation where you have one email service provider for your promotional sends and another one for your transactional emails. And on the marketing team, we kind of own the promotional sends, and the tech team was the keeper of the transactional. And it wasn't until we audited our analytics that we saw we had this untapped resource of transactional emails that were driving in a lot of revenue for us without much work on our part. We weren't doing anything to optimize them. So on one hand, we were spending a lot of staff time on our promotional sends and testing everything under the sun, and we realized we had this potential. So what we did is we knew that as a marketer, we wanted to get in there and start A/B testing and coming up with new transactional emails, and we worked with our tech team to find a tool that would allow the marketing team to go in there and A/B test without putting in a ticket in the queue. And it's been really great for us in terms of learning about our donors, what works, and having a very interested base. One of the amazing things that I find with transactional emails is how much higher all the metrics are across the board, from open rates to click rates, and it's a great opportunity to. You have a captive audience, you can use transactional emails to delight them and drive them back. A shipping notification doesn't have to be boring. It can be personal and fun.
Awesome. Kurt, do you want to add anything around transactionals?
So same thing, we see a lot of engagement transactional. Transactional typically has much higher engagement than anything that's promotional. I guess my only thing, I like the being fun and playful with it and kind of catty in your promotional. We talked yesterday in the machine learning one about an email that was sent from Amazon for a hammock that was purchased, and it had a Star Wars intro, and it was just explaining how the product was being shipped, and it was great. One thing I do recommend avoiding is any kind of promotion actually in a transactional message. We know from talking with Google and Microsoft that they actually hate that, and that's going to lead to those messages eventually getting blocked. So I think being fun and driving your brand and that loyalty through your brand is a good thing, but I wouldn't advertise directly within that transactional message.
Wait, what? Who? So you wouldn't put a promotional message in a transactional email? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't offer a discount. Come back and get 10% off.
Why not?
Again, bad experiences. So we've even seen where social icons or like us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, have those links. Because that's also used in promotional, we've seen reputation from those carry over and cause delivery issues of your boarding pass or your receipt or your shipping notification. So things like that, and then you're just talking, again, I attend a lot of conferences. I primarily focus on conferences where I'm with the ESPs or ISPs as well. And they've talked about that as well, like keep them segmented. Like if it's transactional, it's transactional. It's not to be used for promotional.
I think if you do that, though, you sacrifice, number one, you sacrifice a huge amount of revenue in omitting promotional messages out of that. Second of all, if you have a reputation problem, that's probably not because you have just a little link in an email, right? I think it's probably a grander problem that goes beyond that. I mean, I've seen literally companies make 40% to 50% of their revenue from transactional and triggered emails from that revenue stream. So I'm going to disagree with that one.
And I feel like for Donors Choose, I mean, we are a nonprofit that you already gave to a classroom. So the message that we're delivering relates to the classroom that you gave to, and there is it's inspiring to get an email back, even if it is a transactional, even if it is your receipt, to be reminded that you helped a classroom, in turn drives people back to the site, makes them feel good, and gets them to give again. And it's maybe finding those like nuggets in whatever your product is that can drive you back to the site without perhaps like a crazy promotional offer in the transactional receipt.
I mean, you have to be appropriate, right? You can't, and to your point, I think you have to do it within moderation. We've been preaching for years, it's a 20% rule. Don't exceed the 20%. That, keeps the unsubscribe out of the message, blah, blah, blah. It is moderation, and being within brand and making sure that you're contextual in your offer. It can't be crazy off the board brand distinguish or brand distract.
I think that's really good to think about what that line is around transactionals. The other thing that we mentioned a little bit too is other ways potentially to think about monetizing transactional emails. I know, for example, at Ancestry that one of the things that we're doing is just including kind of some widgets in your transactional emails that's going to encourage people to opt back into other communications as well, which is also obviously adding value to the database as a whole. Does anybody have any experience around that or any thoughts?
We've tried it a little bit. It does have some success, especially if you put a value message around it, right? Is there something that's worth coming back in, especially if they've unsubscribed? I think if you get targeted on that ask, it performs a lot better, right? So if you have data from an opt-down form or a tell us your thoughts or give us your feedback when they opted out the first time, or if you know campaign source, right? Third, don't always drive an acquisition based on a discount, right? They already left you once. It's got to be a deeper, richer message from that than hey, save 10% in your next order.
That's really helpful. And I'm going to continue on to that subject for a little bit about our inactive base, which actually each company refers to differently. I think Michael this morning talked about a 12-month definition that's somewhat traditional, might be moving to 6 months for some companies and industries. So I just wanted to talk a bit about what does inactive mean to you or for your organization? How do you define it and why?
For us, I would go along the traditional 12-month factor. I feel like compared to some other organizations, we're not emailing constantly, so a 6-month thing wouldn't really apply to us. We get nervous when we send more than like 2 or 3 emails to someone in a month. We worry that we're bombarding them. So a year for us, especially without a purchase, is how we consider an inactive user.
For us, it's going to vary depending on frequency. So similar to you, 3 emails a month, I would say a year, maybe even longer is acceptable. But like as someone who's sending daily or multiple messages a day or multiple messages a week, you're deflating the inbox in your engagement rate to some point. Messages and no one's engaging. So doing like, are they just unengaged in email, or are they unengaged across the board? Are they not in the mobile app? Are they not coming to the website? We look at all that when we talk to customers about it, but it really depends.
You bring up a great point. So David Baker, great visionary in the industry, once sat down with me and we were talking about what happens. Do you have a plan for what happens when email doesn't work anymore? Right? What happens when email doesn't work? And that's not a bad thing in terms of the industry. Studies have shown not all customers, just because you have their email address, wants to hear from you from email. And so it is about looking at that broader, deeper context of engagement outside of a particular message set to say, is email just not the right channel? Am I focusing in the wrong way? Should I be focusing somewhere else? I look at retiring or put aside a segment of people when I've tried as hard as I can to get them to be active and it hasn't worked. And I do that through a lot of automation, a lot of marketing automation, a lot of messages, and a lot of in cross-channel and all that, buzzword stuff. But I think that's what I try to do is just get to that end point to say, okay, I'm going to put a commensurate amount of action into people that are inactive and more action into the active people.
So along those lines, I actually just received an email. I've received many, I'm sure you have as well, saying from a company that says, I noticed you haven't been interacting with emails. Do you even still want to hear from us anymore? So how proactive do you think you should be in that space of kind of retiring email addresses?
That's ballsy. I mean, that's, whew.
I didn't know how I felt about it when I got it. It stood out because it was different.
Yeah.
I get a lot of those, I feel.
Do you?
Yeah.
I just not subscribe to the right stuff.
Maybe I should open more.
That really is ballsy to say, do you not, I think it's appropriate in some ways, but you got to work on the tone of that message so it doesn't come across of, do you like us anymore? It just seems really, really...
An old ex-boyfriend, you don't like me anymore.
Yeah. It's the last text you get from your boyfriend that says, you don't love me anymore.
So I keep content samples of great emails that I receive, and I'm going to admit, it's not one of my clients, but Michael's, the craft store.
Yeah.
One of the samples I got from them, it's, we need to work on a relationship. And it's like, let's be friends, send me less email.
Right.
We need to work on a relationship. I don't want any more emails. And then, no, everything's fine. Keep sending me emails. And I actually kind of like that because you're winning me back, and I'm more than just a credit card to you. Mm-hmm. There's a relationship there, and you want to maintain it. I don't like being incentivized to come back. If I probably left for a reason or stopped coming, I don't. Give me a discount. It's not going to get me back.
Go ahead.
I feel like that's something we're actually considering doing, is this email of after we've kind of exhausted how hyper-personalized can we get with our communication? Can we work in a nice organic way as opposed to sending you a last-ditch effort or offer where you're almost kind of rewarding bad behavior with a discount or something? Or I don't know. Doing that.
Your brand, right? The conversation of too much email from everybody. Do I go on on the purge of unsubscribing from a lot of emails? I don't think that question is answered in the best interest of the brand. I think it's answered in the person's concept of their overall email traffic.
Yep. That makes sense to me. And along those lines, again, at Ancestry, depending on who you are, a lot of people will say, if anybody subscribes to Ancestry, you do get a lot of emails from us, and you have those ways to kind of gate your communications. And some people have said, are we over-emailing? And my answer has always been, we should be sending a lot more programmatic emails that are relevant to the user, and it should feel like the right amount of emails for each individual, which is, I think, a very different thing than saying, as a whole, are we sending too many emails or are we not? It's very much based on the individual. So let's see here. What do you do? You kind of touched on this, I think, a little bit, Ryan, or anyone on the panel. So what do you do when email doesn't work anymore? What other channels can you use? And is there kind of a perfect mix there that makes the right formula?
It's all data-driven, right? So I had a client once, a very, very large worldwide client, and we did an analysis on their clusters, persona groups, and came up with about 9 of them. And out of the 9, 4 of them were kind of our core, 4 or 5 were kind of our core. But of those 5, 2 of them weren't email. The propensity models that we ran against it actually said email is not their main channel for effective communication. It is, or some cases, direct mail. And so while we didn't eliminate the email component, we reduced its frequency. So when email doesn't work, you have to say, okay, what's going to work? It's not, the answer to that question is not, I'm just going to give up and not email them anymore. The answer to the question is, I'm going to try and find out where they are because they're somewhere. They may not be receptive to the message, but I have to at least try. And so I think the answer to that is wrapped in a lot of data to find that answer, and it means you have to work with so many other groups to make that happen.
Thank you. So I'm going to move on to another big area within these next big things, which is around recommendation engine retargeting. Now, even this, I've heard this called by so many different names, from remarketing and display retargeting and different things. There's also internal data, there's third-party data. So, what do you do when you don't have third-party recommendation engine data at this point, wherever you are with your company? How do you even start to get around personalization or recommendations without third-party data?
I guess you have to look within your own data. So at Donor Shoes, we don't do a lot of display ad. We do try to send hyper local personalizations to our users, and we look to see how people came to our site, what their billing zip code is, and with that we can reflect back a local school in their neighborhood that needs help, and we keep track of website search terms on our site to see what keywords led them to their donation and send them targeted recommendations that reflect that.
I think that's great to leverage the data you have. Yeah. Is that, Ryan or Kurt, how do you feel about scaling things like recommendation engine retargeting? What's the best way to do that?
I love it. I mean, it's a buy versus build, right? Is it faster to ask your customers and try and mine that data? I mean, in your case, you may have a lot of rich data from not only how they acquired, but their interactions, right? Especially in the nonprofit space. In the retail space, it may be, hey, do I want to partner with another company to help drive that information as a first step to maybe prove it out? It's more of a speed to market. The other one is to work with your in-house data people to say, what data do we have and how can we build a model to say, this is a propensity score that we're happy with to drive a recommendation. That can be done in-house without the presence of data, but it does depend on what you have currently.
And with Donor Shoes, we have about 80 full-time staff people, and we have 2 full-time data scientists who work at our company. And I feel like that's a rarity in the small nonprofit world, but it just shows how powerful data is and how how much you can get from it.
From my side, I'm not dealing with that side. We're just processing the emails to the customers. I'd be more concerned with getting creepy, kind of that. We got that database of one. You want that everything to be unique, but pulling in information that wasn't provided to you. Making sure that's is correct. But I'm always kind of creeped out. Like I'll mention something sitting at my computer, and the next thing I know, like one of my searches comes up, and it's like an ad on the side. I'm like, is someone listening to me? So, avoiding getting creeped out by too much information. And
it's how you use it. We had one of the roundtables with Dennis yesterday. We were talking about that concept of creepy data and how do you avoid it, because creepy data is using data the consumer doesn't know you have or expect you to have. And to your point, you're absolutely right. You have to use it to model and to inform, but not to say we know about you, and the consumer's going, well, how do you know that? If that's the question that's prompted by the consumer when you do something like that, then you've done it wrong, and you deserve to get stepped on like Target. So.
I kind of love the Target example where the dad found out that his daughter was pregnant before.
Everybody know that
told
one?
him.
Hands if you know the Target story. Been told at every conference I mean, it's a great example.
Yeah, and again, at Ancestry, so you submit information about your family to help build your family tree, and then we do searching on the back end. But what we found is, not even found, we didn't even test this like this, but we're not going to put an ad out that says, we found your grandma, right? I mean, that's creepy. But saying something about, we have hints waiting for you at Ancestry, come and explore around display retargeting, that's highly successful. So there is definitely a line there. Even if the user has given you the data, you have to use it very carefully.
It's your dead great-grandmother campaign.
Yeah, that's awesome. The internal code word. No.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I got a little off track there. Let's switch over a little bit and talk about templates. I thought this was another area. So again, we've kind of talked about, whether or not there's a playbook for email around these big concepts. Transactional emails and what more you can be doing. Really thinking about your inactive base and what you can be doing to change that definition, monetize that base, reach out to them, grow your database. We talked about recommendation engine retargeting, and now let's move to templates. So it does feel like often what you're seeing are outdated, non-optimized templates. So are templates as important as ever, or has that changed?
I don't mind changing templates. I think that's good. It keeps your brand fresh. My big thing that I want my customers to do is I want that feel and that experience to be the same if I'm an email, on the website, on a blog. That's my main thing that I look for, is that it's a very consistent look and feel and experience across everything. I hate getting transactional messages that are straight text. I don't know if it's your brand. Don't be afraid to put your brand in there. I just want it to feel like I'm interacting with you at the same place, in my mail or on your website.
Yeah, I like the consistency across all types of messages, and I'm also a big fan of simplicity in the layout. I feel like Square, if you guys know the payment company, I mean, every time I get an email from them, I'm like, oh, it's so pretty and simple, and there's one button, and it looks good on my phone, and I feel like that's something that we strive to at Donors Choose, and we struggle with a little bit is how to optimize our templates for mobile in a way that looks good and with a smaller team. So a lot of times we try to keep it simple for the fact that and single column, so it will look good on a mobile device as well. And we might get to this in a minute, but there's so many mobile readership, as you know, is super high, and we have over 50% of our users opening on mobile, but much less actually donating from their mobile device. And how can we use the template as a way to make it more streamlined, that they're going to open the email on the phone and give right there.
They're so excited to create a work of art every time they send a damn email. Everything's got to look pretty and fresh, and that is that it makes your production time 2 to 3 times longer, and 2, you don't always have the mobile context to make it look good in a mobile device. Now, this I think is complicated by the fact that ESPs for years have been horrible at having a template editor that actually made sense, and it was made for a marketer, not for a coder. And if you had a template editor that you could load a template in, and if it was modular, you could move blocks around, but make it for a marketer, I think that would make it easier. But really, we need to get this idea of a fresh, new creative every time has got to go away. It's got to be a template. It's got to be consistent. All the points you guys have made. Vendors in the room. How many of the vendors in the room, how many people are working with companies that are creating a new piece of email every time they send? One of your clients is doing that. Anybody? Kind of, sort of? I mean, that's a challenge that we see at the enterprise level, mid-market level.
So just one more question on templates. So if you are going to go through an exercise to optimize your template or overhaul your template, who would be on that team? Or ideally, what kind of stakeholders or even vendor agency relationships would be comprised of the team that would be overhauling your template?
I would say the UI UX team, the people who are, they've done so much research on like website and interaction. Am I going to engage? What's going to be, where's my call to action? Is it going to be below the fold? Is it going to be in the middle of the page? I think that UI UX person is probably the top person I would look to.
Yeah, first I would say it's product and marketing would be on there.
Somebody with a creative mind more than me, because it's not my brand representative, right? It starts with what is my brand equity, and it starts with a strategy. I think a lot of the discussions that we have today are about the tactic. What's the tactic of the thing we're doing? And I think what we're missing in the industry still is because we're too busy, and I'm guilty of this as well, is we jump into the tactics and not focus on the strategy first. So in template rebuild, I'm going to look at the strategy of what that is, the brand equity of what I'm trying to portray, the important parts of that equity, and then move on to the design elements. But I have to understand my end user and my brand voice, my brand messenger.
Okay, so the last topic I think we'll hit on, hopefully have time for some questions, kind of jumps off of this template discussion. So converting in the inbox. So I've been looking around and doing a lot of research around things around interactive emails. So having, feedback mechanisms right there on your email that a user can click on and tell you how you're doing or whether or not they liked that email or whether it was relevant to them. Emails that almost serve as landing pages with, automated gifts and different pictures or scrolling, offers in the emails, order purchasing in the emails. How does this change the landscape of templating? And are we really ready now to kind of make that leap, or is that really a little bit out from where we are?
I think technology is generally ready for things faster than the consumer is. right? Addressable TV is still being, is talked about, done in small form with some of the big broadcasters. But is the consumer ready for that? No. I don't know that the consumer is ready for that interaction of buy in the inbox, because that's just not the experience they're ready for, right? We have to train and get the consumer ready for that and to bring them to a level. So how can we do that? We can do that with, we talked about on our prep call, a donate now button, right? Something that takes you, is a convertible medium. Email is not a convertible medium. It is a lead generation tool. So having those kind of things, having something that is that bridges the gap, I think is first step.
And I think we're getting closer to it. I think the abandoned cart type emails is training people to, when they get their email, they click on it and they're taken directly to the cart and they can just continue their purchase. And I think we're going to see a lot more converting in the inbox, especially converting on the mobile device, with having saved credit cards saved on all the websites, just to make it easier and more seamless.
I think we've got to get to a different point with email. I think consumers lack trust in email. There's so much spam, everything goes out through email, phishing, all that kind of stuff, that I think people just don't trust purchasing an email. Like if I ever get something from my bank, I don't ever just click the link. I'll go navigate to their actual website. So I don't think people are ready to make that commitment, enter a credit card, even if it's saved, make that transaction right there in email. I think there's just a lack of trust still in the inbox.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's because we're not ready. The consumer isn't ready and the channel hasn't set it up right. It's not just like we can spring something on the marketplace and have everybody adopt it. You have to ease people in and you have to have a strategy. Now that's hard because there isn't like a central guiding force of the industry saying you go here and you go here. But I think it's a lot of companies will try it and experiment and naturally push forward.
That's right. I think yesterday when we were asking about who would be ready and willing to get into a Google car that drives for you, I mean, I will buy anything on Amazon from my app with one click and it's at my house in 2 days. I'm so overly comfortable with that. But I do think it's right that they're not doing that in email, they're doing it in an app. And so I think that it's going to be interesting to see how that changes, because email has always the mantra around very simple, one click, send, all you're trying to do is kind of drive traffic to your website. With these types of changes and innovations, I wonder what that will look like in a few years.
You have a great point. Marketers try to force the context of another channel into another, right? Just because I buy in an app because it's an app. Transferring that app experience to something else isn't what consumers want, nor should we be doing. It's like trying to force a social strategy into email, right? It just doesn't work. So let's really think about the context of what we're doing within the medium that it's being done. This goes both ways, how we use it and how we publicize our message from it.
Now, if I ask that question in 3 years, do you think your answer would be different, or do you hold firm?
Which one? I still think, it's come back in 3 years. We'll find out. But yeah, I think it would. I think you have certain distinguishable actions within the experience. Now, we'll see more real time. I think in the next 10 years or 5 years or 6 years, there was a bunch of articles on that from Litmus. But I think you'll see more emphasis on real time communication. But a channel is going to be a channel is going to be a channel. There are going to be specific things to that channel that keep it the way it is.
By the way, I agree with you. I like the composite of the different experiences together, creating a good holistic customer, experience. And I think different things are used and leveraged for different reasons and can be kind of form a synergy around the whole. Okay, last thing I was just going to ask you each really quickly, whether it's something that we hit here or maybe something that we didn't, so that people can walk away and say, here's something in my mind I think about next from talked about or haven't covered.
That trust. I think it's time for more brand protection. So I'm a huge advocate for everybody going to that deep policy. It's not going to get you past the filters, but it's showing that you're locking down your brand. Sending with TLS enabled messages, again, that doesn't get you past the filters, but that message showing insecure in the inbox, I have less trust in your brand. I don't know, did it actually come from you or is it being spoofed? I think that's the next big thing, is making sure that the consumers actually trust you as a sender.
I feel like after yesterday, I've been thinking a lot about machine learning, and with Jessica's presentation, some emotional messaging. So I just feel like something that we'll be seeing a lot more of in the next year or so.
Yeah. I would say if I'm giving advice, to be three things. First, reach out to your professional services team of the email service provider you use or agency that you use. Reach out to them and ask them what you should be doing, right? That's the first free step that you can do. That phone call costs nothing, and they've got a great experience. Our teams have got that kind of stuff, and we're always talking to clients about that. And your ESPs do the same thing. The second is start with a strategy. Like I said before, don't start with a tactic. Start with the strategy of what you're trying to accomplish, and then focus on the tactics. And then the third I forgot, because it's just that kind of a day. I got nothing in my head. It felt really important, but I got nothing.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And I think we have time for a couple of questions.
We can take
One.
One really good one?
You can blame it on the people who want to go horseback riding. He runs faster than I do.
The Donahue run.
He runs, I don't.
Itai from Warner. Great panel. So I have two comments, actually, one question. Regarding converting the inbox. So Expedia sends you, as you land, you get this, how was your flight? And you have two smileys, right? And based on whatever you click, you'll get taken to a landing page which looks exactly the same as the email, which has another smiley but with a different question. So how was your flight? And then was it on time? And things like that. And so what's interesting there is the first action is in the email. The second action is already on a mini website, but it really looks exactly like the email. So the experience is seamless, and I think that's really important. Like if you start something in an email, you have to make sure the landing page or wherever you're taking your consumers looks the same and feels the same. And they, some people won't even know the difference if it's a mini website or an email, which is very interesting. My question is about the post-purchase, the post-purchase or triggered messaging. So what's your take on putting those promotional messages directly in the first email, the receipt email, the confirmation email, versus launching a post-purchase campaign after that based on that specific, action, and then, maybe a week later they get something about that?
Yeah. I would do both, right? So, and that's the discussion we were having earlier. Is I would put the message in there as long as in the transaction for that sell in the transactional message and post. You really have to test whether or not your customers react better to one or the other, or a series, right? Maintaining that 20% rule is the key, but I would do both. Just don't get pushy, right? You get too salesy, and it's like, God, leave me alone. I mean, I talked to some of you guys are like that. I'm like that sometimes. We get too pushy.
All right. Well, big hand for the panel. Thank you very much. That was great. I'm going to bring Steve Smith up, who will be doing the next panel, the journey to one-to-one messaging, and that journey, and where is a practical place to kind of sit on that continuum. So as they get settled, I will hand it over to Steve.
Thanks, Gordon. We have a really diverse group here, representing a lot of different types of companies and a lot of different challenges. And I want to draw some of that out in my first set of questions and having them introduce themselves. We're going to try to move towards understanding how you move from some of the more basic email approaches of batch and blast towards much more highly automated and personalized approaches. But first, I want to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and in doing so, just very briefly discuss what place email has in their organization, and especially what's the goal of email in relationship to the rest of the marketing mix. Let's start with Leanna.
I'm Leanna DeLeon, and I manage our company's email optimization and web analytics. I'm with ArcBus Corporation. We're a trucking, shipping, logistics firm. That's our B2B side. Our B2C side is our moving company, UPAC Moving. And for the last 10 years, I've been responsible for all of that for UPAC. And our team had so much impact on the UPAC business. About a year ago, they said, we'd like for you to all move that up and do all of that for our B2B business as well. So on the B2B side, we're just getting started with email and digital marketing in general. In terms of the place that email has, email is essential to our communication with our customers who are requesting a quote, even after they've made a reservation with us, informing them of everything involved in their move and helping them trust our company and the anxiety that comes with a move, just kind of easing that and helping them understand the move process.
Yours is like, email really carries a lot of the relationship.
It does, yes.
Because it's just the nature of the product, and you're carrying them through a process.
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah.
From the time that they request a quote until actually after they've unloaded all of their stuff at their new home.
Okay. Mary, yours is a very different business and a very different challenge.
Yeah, I'm Mary Miller. I'm the email marketing manager at Fullscreen. Fullscreen is a global media company that develops online creators and provides or produces entertainment experiences. I specifically work on the subscription video service that just launched on April 26th. So we are a brand new product, and most people are not familiar with our brand, so we're really sort of trying to get the name out there. I manage all of the email for that SVOD product, which, we're subscriber acquisition very focused right now, but also engagement and retention.
And you're just sort of pivoting from what Fullscreen had been, which was open to all, and you were serving and still do serve as kind of a broker between social influencers and brands. And
Correct.
But now you're one of these now you're one of the video subscription services, one of the apps you can subscribe
Yes.
to. So you're pivoting models.
Yeah, and I've actually only been with the company for 6 months, but I've worked in email for almost 10 years. So for me, this is a totally new ballgame. I've never worked on subscription before, so.
And Kevin, you're with a startup.
Yeah. Hey everybody, Kevin Pollock. So I've been a professional marketer for 16 years now since I finished undergrad. And I describe it as a digital direct response marketer. I feel like that's what most, if not all of us are. And so I started working at IBM a year and a half ago, and my role there is to enable and elevate email marketing across the global matrixed organization. So when you think about IBM, we are 400,000 people, 5,000 or 6,000 marketers across 130 some odd countries, spread across thousands of products. So we are extremely matrixed, and we are a B2B marketer. And we run the gamut of, people that know absolutely nothing to folks like our friends Lauren and company at IBM Marketing Cloud Services that have been doing digital marketing their whole lives. So we have a lot of challenges.
And Daniel, your company is actually more familiar than most people in the audience may know, because you recently rebranded, right?
Yeah, I'm Daniel Talavera, and I'm the email and CRM manager, and I do all the email campaigns for my organization. We're a video game company, primarily best known for EverQuest 2, PlanetSide 2, H1Z1, King of the Kill, and games such of that nature.
Yeah. You're Daybreak now, but you used to be Sony.
Yeah. A year ago now,
right.
Back in February.
And what's the role of email for for the relationship between you and your customers?
Engagement, retention, reacquisition.
Right. You have customers for EverQuest who have been doing this for
17 years. Yeah. I mean, we have a ridiculous amount of data, and we use it quite frequently.
And just very quickly, and then I want to get into some of the individual cases here. Would each of you just sort of characterize the level of automation and personalization that you're currently doing?
Sure.
For email?
We automate email completely from the beginning of the funnel. When the customer requests a quote from us, an email automatically goes to that customer with their quote information, depending on whether they call us or most of our customers make a reservation over the phone. So if you don't call us, you get an email, and if you do call us, you get another email. Those go out automatically. When you make a reservation, that's automated. When you depending on the service that you've selected, you get an upsell email that may sell you on different services. What we don't automate, though, is the reply. If a customer wants to have a conversation with us, we see email as a conversation. We welcome that. In fact, that conversation is important to us because that customer has, in our service, a lot of anxiety, and we want to help ease that. And everybody's move is different. Everybody's situation is different.
And that's a really interesting part of your organization, is that you're using a high degree of automation. There's a lot of email that's carrying the relationship, but ultimately a phone call is a part of this mix somewhere. And the high degrees of automation and personalization are actually sort of supporting, driving, supplementing that personal conversation that at some point is going to take place.
That's right. More than 90% of our reservations are made with a person on a phone. And a lot of times this is a customer's first move, because we just do long distance moves. We don't do local moves. And so this can be the person's first time to move a long distance. And if you have moved long distance, you probably haven't moved recently. So there are a lot of moving pieces. You have to find a new job, a new school, a new bank. I mean, there are so many things that you're concerned about. Getting your stuff from point A to point B may not be the most important thing in your life.
Right.
But and there's a lot of anxiety around it, and we, our salespeople want to reassure that customer that we're the right choice. And so if a customer wants to have a conversation with us, all of our emails that are automated have one of our sales consultants' name and their phone number, and that person can reply to that email, and that sales consultant will reply with a personal response. Here's what's going on. Please feel free to give me a call. These are the hours I'm in the office, but if that doesn't work for you, someone else can help you.
It's like this persistent reminder. This is automated. This is personalized. Here's your opportunity to opt out of that immediately and go to the human quotient. Yeah. Mary, where is automation and personalization for you?
Currently, it's pretty minimal. We have just standard transactional emails that are triggered based on events and a welcome series, but that's pretty much the only automation we have right now.
Okay. Kevin, you're across the board, right?
Yeah, so I would say as an organization, we are probably 7 to 10 years behind the curve. When you think about IBM, it's 104 years old, and traditionally it has been a brand marketing organization that drives to an individual salesperson coming in and talking to a C-level executive. So they did not traditionally look at email or even marketing as a key thing. And so when I came in, I would meet people that were doing email, and I would always say, great, tell me about what you're doing. And the majority of the responses I got were, oh, we're doing nurture. And I'm like, great, what does that mean? And to everybody within IBM, with the exception of a few, it was, well, we do 3 emails. Okay, why? And they're like, well, I don't know, that's just what nurture is here. So it's very we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm really trying to accelerate some of that.
Okay, we're going to come back. I want to come back to that range of experiences that you have. Daniel, how about you?
Currently, it's minimal. We just piloted a program for one of our titles, DCUO. And it's a pretty robust program. It's a lot more than 3. Yeah. There's 7 messages, but there's multiple variants. So it's all based on how you play the game or how you engage with the game. If you drop off, or if you're playing slower, or if you're like somebody that's going to move through the game really quickly. So I'm pretty excited to see some of the analytics come back. I mean, literally last week we first started it. So. And
you're also dealing with multiple channels, right? You've got people who are playing on the various console game boxes. You've got people who are playing on PC, on mobile.
Yep. Yeah. In this iteration of the program, we're going to start it out on the Xbox, which recently launched. The game's 5 years old, so we have a lot of old and history data on how people are engaging with the game, and that's kind of how we informed our decision to create our program.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, I want to start with you, since you're advising in IBM across a lot of different programs, and I want to start with how you lay out some of the key differences in the different approaches that these different departments have to personalization and automation according to their different goals and needs.
I don't know that the needs are necessarily different. It's a couple of fronts, right? So I have to attack on a massive scale. And so when a lot of you think about marketing, our email marketers traditionally have a certain level of control over the data, the campaign management, as well as the creative. One of the political challenges I face is those are different departments. And so I've got to constantly, people come to me, they're like, great, I want to start an email. And I'm like, all right, well, there's 3 conversations we need to have, and I don't control all of them. And so I lead them to have these other conversations, but it's a big challenge. And I would say they all want to do good marketing, so if it's a matter of us enabling them and then leading them. And right now, my heavy focus is on rolling out some enablement within platforms and templates. I know we were talking about that in the last panel. Templates are huge for us. It's the only way to do it in scale and to keep our marketers from having to worry about development and responsiveness and things like that that they shouldn't have to worry about.
Are there vast differences in the levels of automation that you're at least advising for different cases throughout the company?
So within IBM, we really try to force everybody onto central platforms. And it's difficult because we have thousands of products, most of which were acquired through purchase. Like let's take Silverpop, for example. We acquired them, and we have this year-long onboarding ramp for any new company that we buy. And we're basically like, you have to get on our systems and blah, 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 blah. But then you have legitimate companies that are like, well, your system doesn't do the stuff that I'm currently using and I need it to do. And so there's a big tug of war there that happens. For those that are on the system, they're ecstatic that my group exists because there never was an email marketing group or a person that focused on email for them before. And so I don't know if that really answers the specific question, but that's sort of the mindset I'm coming in with.
Okay. So I want to drill into Mary's case because you're going through a whole bunch of changes, right? You're not only are you moving from a free to a paid model, but that also means you're also pivoting into, first of all, it's very app focused because that's one of the key distribution vehicles you're using. But now you're also moving from not only just acquiring users, but acquiring paid users, and now a growing pool of paid users that now you have to manage and maintain. So tell us a little bit about how that's impacting at least the ways in which you're coming at the email problem and how you're pivoting.
So in my previous role, before Fullscreen, I worked at a concert promoter, and for me, it was focused on finding the right audience for whatever the message was that we were sending out. And now working at Fullscreen on this subscription service, it's more about finding the right message for that audience. So definitely a lot of personalization is going to come into play, keeping them engaged, knowing what they're watching on the service, if they're watching anything at all, and how do we get them to come back and watch more and more and more and keep them around.
Mm-hmm. So how are you gathering data? Let's say on the acquisition side, how are you getting data about who your potential audience is and start contouring messaging towards them?
So we tailored our acquisition messages with the copy and some of the content that we're featuring based on how we acquired those emails. So our biggest audience is our actual creator network. We have 80,000 creators, and combined they reach 300 million subscribers or something like that. So we're really kind of leveraging their influence and doing a lot of influencer marketing campaigns. So email plays sort of a small role in subscriber acquisition currently, but definitely tailoring the message. For the creators, it was about they're part of our Fullscreen family. They've been with us for the last 4 or 5 years, and we want them to be a part of this new service that we have.
Yeah. Now, Daniel, you've been collecting massive amounts of data. I mean, from users for over a decade now. So I'm curious about how are you winnowing through? Data's not the problem for you. You've got loads of it, and you've got very personal data about really detailed data about usage. How are you meeting the challenge of winnowing through the data to better understand, where email fits in and how you tie the right data to the right messaging?
So primarily, we kind of read through everything and figure out pretty much like every year we talk about what our big selling points are and how we're going to strategically use those. So I figure out for the year, okay, here's are the big chunks of data that I'm going to need to do specific targeting for specific messaging to account for that. We have really specific things like logging in or how long people have played or level of engagement within the game, but it's all about the planning and the strategy, what we need to do.
That's interesting. Tell us about that annual assessment of messaging. How does that happen? What data feeds into that? What informs from year to year, since you're talking about sometimes gamers?
I mean, a lot of it too.
17 years.
It comes from like a game launching, right? So then there's a plan of acquisition, gathering the data, figuring out if a player is just perusing the site and trying to do lead nurturing, or if we're retaining an existing audience and trying to get them to come to this new game. So we message them a little differently as well. So
How about the challenge of gathering data from multiple platforms? Because you're on Xbox, you're on PlayStation,
Yeah,
right? Of course, you're
that's
Sony.
that's an interesting process within itself. Some platforms we have to proprietary stuff. Some people want us to just collect it in game for PlayStation and Xbox, and for PC we have 100% control, so we can do different means of collecting that data.
So your typical, for your EverQuest users, what are some of the typical triggers that you're using for messaging, or what are some of the things you're looking for and you're guarding? And you have the problem of retention for them. What are some of the level of events and things that you're using as triggers to activate messaging programs?
For those folks, we kind of look at their level of engagement in game. We want to make sure that they're inactive if we're trying to win them back. There's a lot of discussion about how far to go back. There's a little bit of how bad the data may be from back then versus our more recent data. So there's a lot of conversations and me kind of being an advocate of, we got to be careful because some of that data is really old or stale, and then go from there.
But then how personalized does the messaging become?
Some titles we don't have a lot of data, like EverQuest. We don't, it just really boils down to like their membership. So if they're all access member, which is one of our membership programs, we can surface that stuff, but it's just really generalized for that audience. But other titles, we're aggregating a bunch more, and I'm trying to learn how specific messaging within their life cycles just helps perpetuate their gameplay.
Leanna, you have a really detailed and intricate set of messaging that depends on a lot of different triggers because it's an involved buy process. Walk us through that process of how triggers enact certain types of messaging and the degree of personalization it gets down to.
Okay. When a customer comes to us and they request a quote on our website, we only ask 5 questions. So we ask, where are you moving from, where are you moving to, when are you moving, not on a calendar, just a time frame, in the next week, in the next month. And then we ask, how much stuff are you moving, so how many bedrooms are in the home that you're moving, and then we ask for your email address. So that's all on the surface that we know about this customer. And so we need to use every piece of that. And I'm very fortunate in that I work for a company where data and data warehousing and access to that data and understanding of that data is not a problem. We have marketing technology team right in our marketing team, so we know what data is available. I've been with the company for more than 10 years now, so I'm very familiar with all the data structures and all the data available. So on the surface, that's all that we know about the customer, but if we go a little bit deeper, when they visit our site, we know what pages they visited, we know what keywords they came in on, we know their IP address, we know what organization is attached to that IP address. So what we can do, and we split test everything. It's a little bit of accountability, are we doing the right thing for the company when we make a change? How much value are we adding as a marketing team to our company in whole when we make this change? And I'm able to put revenue dollars right on that change. We sent this email and I was able to put revenue dollars right on that. So going a little bit deeper into those triggers, when a customer, we're going to start some testing with all of this segmentation where if a customer comes into our website and they are moving from one city that's primarily a military city to another city that's a primarily military city, and they come in with a .mil email address and they're moving more than our minimum amount of space, there's a really good, well, if they come in with a .mil email address, they're obviously military. There are a certain set of messages that we can send to that customer to help them understand that we offer a military discount, and there are certain requirements that the military has that we have to fulfill as the moving company so that they get reimbursed. Just reassuring that customer that we can take care of your needs. We don't just understand who that customer is, but what their goals are. This customer, their goal is to have that move successfully done with a company that they trust and be reimbursed by the military for that move.
How many, let me ask, since you raised that and you talked about that, just that military segment, how many segments like that do you have? And what, I'm especially interested in what sort of creative challenge that poses for you in terms of making sure you've got those number of messages ready?
We have, right now we just have 3 or 4 of those segments, I think. We have students who are moving for college. So the time of year that you're moving, if you're moving May or September and you're moving just a small amount to or from a college city, I mean, we can, if you have a .edu email address. We have customers who are looking for storage options, so they come in on a storage keyword. And we have customers who may be looking for a full service move, and the U-Pack is a DIY option. We bring the container to you, you do the loading, we drive it, and you unload it at your new home. And so for those people who are looking for a full service option, maybe we can offer loading or unloading help. You know, we can refer a company, and so they don't have to do as much and still save money. And then we have our truck rental segment, a segment that is they're looking for a DIY money-saving option. They've been looking for truck rental, and we can offer an alternative to driving a U-Haul 900 miles over the Rocky Mountains.
So you really only have four main segments, but you're able to render just from those 4 or 5 questions, plus the background, either the search data or IP addresses. You're able to bucket these people pretty effectively, and you've got creative to send them. You've got a path for them to take.
We do, and these customers too. You know, some of the testing we're about to start is where are you moving from, and where are you moving to, and what time of year are you going to do that? I don't want to drive a U-Haul over the Rocky Mountains in November, and I don't know a whole lot of people who do, but we're a very good option for customers in that case. But customers a lot of times are just thinking about the savings, right, and not the dangers of doing that.
Let me go back to all of you and ask the organizational question. Kevin, you mentioned it already, but I wanted to get it from all of you. What are some of the organizational constraints to better personalization and automation across your organizations? I want to save you for last. But Mary, why don't you start?
Gathering all the data and putting it together in a way that I can actually use it. You know, we collect data in a lot of different places, and actually tying it together and getting the resources to do that. So I'm very dependent on the BI team, the data warehouse team. I'm also sort of fighting for priority against, you know, the product team, who's actually still building and upgrading this product and this app. And, you know, obviously that is in many cases a higher priority than, you know, my email needs if I'm trying to automate. So, you know, just kind of getting on the soapbox and making the case for email. And, you know, everyone knows it's important, but we do have limited resources.
Yeah, I would agree that within even our where the data is, what format it's in, is it accessible by the campaign management team? And then I would also add for us, like, geography is a big difference. So, like, little things like the fact that I'm told that people in Germany will get really upset if you just use their first name in a salutation. Like, there's all of these things that you just don't think about from a global perspective sometimes.
How are you managing, Kevin, since you raised it before, and the idea of how when you have a conversation with a unit about they want to do better email marketing, and then you say, well, there's 3 conversations here. Tell us a little bit about how you're managing that. How you're managing those 3 different silos and getting them all to talk to one another.
Yeah, so within IBM, we are really big on sort of these big conference calls where we constantly preach like how we're like. So we have the gentleman in charge of the data organization. He's done a number of webinars and, you know, sessions on what they're doing around strategic segmenting, right? And so that's supposed to help take the challenge away from some of our marketers of trying to figure out who am I actually going to select within this huge range of IBM data, right? So that sort of puts bookends on like who they can actually touch. And then we have the campaign management team, which is rolling out the newest version of Unica. And so they have a number of enablement calls around this is what Unica can do and can't do and how you work through it. And then I've been doing a number around, okay, here's how you assemble the emails and here's what's available to you. So enablement and communication is just huge within IBM. Like it's got to be huge. It's so hard to get everybody. And we have little wiki pages or sub-community pages, and so it's a lot of PR and promotion, to be honest.
Internal PR, internal education, trying to get others within the organization to understand what you're capable of doing so they can make the connections themselves.
Yeah, and one of my big tools is we have 3 global marketing centers, which are supposed to be sort of the enablement pieces for all the various regions and marketers. And so myself and Serena, who's here with me, we've just done our little global tour, visiting all of them in person and doing enablement sessions in person there and talking to them and doing roundtables and Q&A and stuff. Because I know that they're going to be speaking to marketers on a daily basis, and so they can help amplify my message directly.
And Daniel, yours is maybe not IBM, but a pretty big company too, but maybe more evolved in terms of the pieces talking to one another. How do you handle, or what are the nature of the internal challenges for getting the various pieces to talk with one another?
I'm going to kind of echo what Mary said. It's always hard to kind of get the buy-in from an email perspective, but we got limited resources. Our platform teams are focusing on multiple games, just like I'm focusing on multiple games. So it's really about allocating specific time for certain projects and just banging on doors, making sure people understand what data I'm able to get, how it's going to affect our marketing holistically, not just in CRM or email. And once we develop the platform and I'm reporting and talking about the successes, it becomes a more visual thing, or visibility into the data, so they understand that I need more of it.
Your company is so different and so fundamentally different from what we've heard so far. Tell us how, and there's really an amazing cultural difference here.
Right. We're data-driven, and we are also very customer journey oriented. And so when it comes to understanding what data is available and how we feed that back out to our customers, the business units understand that. And so I've had business units, the manager of one of our logistics companies come to me and say, I know that we have customers who are shipping into Florida, and right now, in the spring apparently is a big time for shipping produce out of Florida, and we can give customers really good gifts on, truckloads or whatever moving into Florida. And so she came to me and said, is there a way that we can personalize this email and talk about, to these customers who we know are doing this, just to those customers, hey, we can, during this time frame, we can probably get you a really good rate, give us a call. And so the business itself is so excited about email and about tailoring those messages because we are so customer oriented. The value in our business is the service that we provide. Not necessarily, we're not always the best price, but we provide the best service and the most personal service to each customer's needs. Our one of our mottos at work is we'll find a way. We'll find a way to take care of your needs. And just knowing who those customers are who ship into Florida and knowing that there's this capacity here to give them a good price is really interesting. So this is one of my first ventures with our B2B. Like I said, I've been working with the B2C for so long. So our B2B, I'm really looking forward to working with all of those business units and helping them understand what we can do for them. But in terms of organizational constraints, I feel quite fortunate that I don't have the data accessibility or understanding or issues. If I present to management that I need to run an email campaign or that I need to start testing a new email to this segment, all I have to do is say I expect this amount of lift, which would in return bring this amount of revenue and profit, and how does that stack up in terms of priority to our other projects? And so it's really not an issue.
Just another huge organizational hurdle is working for IBM as a giant IT company. There's always a political and a political element to picking the tools we need to use, right? There's always the force to you have to what I or others need. And again, we need to pick tools that work across the giant organization, but to pick an outside tool that could potentially just solve the issue is not an easy thing for us to do. Whereas if you are a smaller digital shop, you go out, you find the vendor that answers your position, and you plug it in. And that's a huge challenge for us.
I want to move us towards opening up for questions. I want to get to one of the key questions of this panel is what limits have you found, if you have yet at all, the limits of automation and personalization in dealing with your clients? Anybody?
Well, for me, at IBM, we haven't hit that. But I always say when it comes to marketing, and especially email, is relevance drives engagement. And relevance can be based on the way you automatically select people, or the way you automatically populate creative, or use something like Persado to write better content. If it's not relevant to the recipient, it's not going to work, right? And so to me, that is where the demarcation is of effective and not effective.
Yeah, I would echo that and just say that our audience specifically expects very high personalization. They don't respond to just sort of like the one message fits all. So for us, it's really important to look at what are the behaviors on the service, what are they watching, how long are they staying for, what are they watching it on, what type of device. So that's really important to us, and keeping our users engaged and coming back every month.
To the point of making reference to things that they've watched?
Yeah, so we have series. So if we know that they're always watching, a certain series, letting them know when a new episode has been put on the service.
Daniel?
Yeah, we're in discovery phase. So right now it's just aggregating data and discovering how our players are interacting with our messages and how does that result into in-game. So really closing that loop of data so we can create those hyper-targeted, hyper-personalized messages.
We really haven't hit any limits on automation of emails. We automate everything that goes out and haven't really seen any kind of issue with that.
But there's a kill switch. I mean, I think what's interesting, there's an automation kill switch in all of your emails.
There is. When that customer wants to interact with us
it
on a
gives them the
personal
option
one-to-one.
to opt out of automation and personalization. By the way, does anybody have, I want to wrap with some do's and don'ts for everybody, but does anybody have any questions they want to ask of our group?
I mean,
I've got good news and bad news.
Okay.
I'll start with the bad news. I'm not sure we're going to be able to fit questions in.
Okay.
The good news is you get to hear from John Whitfield instead. And he's going to be making a draw for something. I'm not sure what. But, really, listening to John is a prize in itself, I think. So
I would potentially say one of the another thing around automation is so you get to the point where you can't keep your eyes and manage how things are performing on a regular basis, then you might have to start asking questions around well, what are we doing, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, you don't have to touch it regularly, but somebody has to look at the data on a regular basis.
Right.
Yeah. I also want to add, I'm sure there's a lot of good conversation, and we'll just carry that over to the roundtables at the end of the day. So maybe if you do have questions, make sure you find these guys and what roundtable they're on, and make sure you're sitting at the same table. And now, John Whitfield.
Hey. How we doing? Thanks, guys.
I think that means we're done.
Yeah, you can leave. You don't have to debacle. You can go about your way. Oh my God, you guys are amazing. Last night's after party. Keep that on top. Keep it there. Keep it fair. You guys keep it fair. It's amazing. I'm gonna just put it right there. Am I
allowed to enter?
Get out of here. Marketing services. You want marketing services in this?
No chance.
The direct marketing manager for NC Sports, and he's going to talk a little bit about the journey they've been on since he's joined.